we go. So as we are going live, and it's getting ready to stream, and it's almost there on Facebook right now. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am so happy that you're here. And I am Valerie Wilson Peterson from Hope Defined Me. And today is Testimony Tuesday. And I am thankful that you're here and you're popping on. And I've got a wonderful guest for you this evening. So while I'm waiting for people to pop on, I just want to tell you a little bit about Testimony Tuesday. It's actually a project of God's that he put on my heart earlier in the year, and I was a little slow at getting it started for him. But now it's up and running, and this is basically God's show. It is his platform, and I am merely just the facilitator. What this is about is that God shows us, and we all know this, we all walk through stuff. And we walk through everything that we do so that we can help other people, because there will be others coming alongside of us that are walking through the same thing that we walk through. And we are able to help them. And that's what's so important. We're to love one another and we're to help one another. And that's what God wants. So this is God's show, and it's called Testimony Tuesday. And my very special guest, my friend, Kristi Collins, is here today. I'm super excited that she's here. And I'm going to read you about her bio and tell you a little bit about Kristi. Her subject today is betrayal. And I think we've all experienced that. And I will tell you a little bit about Kristi. Right now, Kristi would describe herself as a warrior, a follower of Christ, a hope dealer, and a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, trauma, and marital betrayal. She clung to hope, and she would, in the answers of her aching heart when her husband's betrayal was revealed. What she found instead was complete healing for her heart and freedom from her past. Kristi founded Radiant Warriors in 2019 to equip other women to navigate the hurts and the wounds of the past, to find healing and to find freedom. She created the Radiant Warriors, which is from crisis to Christ, and it is absolutely amazing. And I just want to give it up to my friend Kristi right now. Kristi, thank you for joining us today. And I believe that every one of us have gone through some sort of hurt like this, like betrayal, being lied to, cheated on, just devastating, crushing blows to our hearts and to our spirits. And I'm so happy that you're here to share your journey with us to help us with this. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Valerie. And yeah, the answer to your question is yes. We have all been betrayed because we're all sinners. And so we're going to offend each other. So we really need to redefine what we're talking about, because betrayal is usually just an offense between two believers. And certainly Matthew gives us steps how to do that repair work. But what happens in betrayal is that I say, you've hurt me, but then it's your job to come and give me comfort. And that's how we repair, actually, betrayal amongst relationships. Now, betrayal in marriage is going to look different because it's the only relationship where there's actually a covenant involved. And so that betrayal is deeper and more painful. And the journey is just, it's laborious. It's heavy and it's long, especially for women. But yeah, in a nutshell, we all have been hurt. We all have a story, and we all need to figure out, can we receive comfort for those that have hurt us? That's the essence of repair work for betrayal.
Oh my goodness. And it sounds amazing, and it almost sounds like impossible and hard to do. Before we dive into that, give us some backstory on you. And at some point in our lives, we've all been hurt. So I'm just wondering, let's go back to the beginning and share a little bit of your backstory and where you kind of grew up, your family, and all the roots there, and what everything went on in your life at that point.
Yeah, sure. They call that family of origin because we've all grown up differently. We either have siblings or don't have siblings. And the way that our parents, they called it attunement. Did they see us? Did they listen to us? Or were we just kind of the invisible middle child? All of that affects how we become in relationship as adults. Believe it or not, your family of origin is the number one thing that we want to look at as coaches, to see where did you come from and how did that impact how you relate to people today. So my story is pretty common. 3 children. I was the youngest. I had 2 older brothers, grew up middle income, lower income in the state of Florida. And I was born in the late 60s. So I'm a little 70s kid. So we ran the neighborhood with bikes, and, we went home when the sun went down. It was pretty much freedom. Dad went to work, mom stayed home. It was just very traditional values in my house. But underneath that family of origin, there was a lot of dysfunction going on. And as children, we always say more is caught than taught, and was absolutely true for me. So you, as a child, you learn how to read your parents, and you are attempting to make them happy. Did you know that?
Yes.
You are always modulating, children are always modulating themselves to fit into the family dynamic. And so I was the baby, and my brothers were much older, 9 and 10 years older than me. So I really grew up an only child. And unfortunately, my heartache started very young. And by the time that I was 12, I had a history of childhood sexual abuse. And that alone in a family of origin is enough to wreck somebody. It just changes every relationship you have from that point on. And Valerie, the statistics are really stunning right now. 2 out of every 3 women has had some form of unwanted sexual interaction. From the lowest level of, high schoolers, middle schoolers, dating, touching, that unwanted, he touched me, all the way up to full sexual abuse. So trauma's here, and it's not just on the women's side, the men as well. And so unfortunately, as I grew up, that caused, choices for me that you would never want your child to choose. But you don't know what you don't know. As a child, you're just going through using every coping mechanism you have to try to get to the next day. And pretty much that's what I did. And it obviously, all of that trauma showed up in my dating life, and it showed up in my college life, and my academia life, and it showed up in my work life, and it showed up in every relationship I had, and it showed up in my marriage. And so, here we are years and years later, and I had to walk through, the betrayal of my husband. But it always seems like this story is, I came from just a normal middle income, mid-America family. And yet, what you grew up in very much impacts who you are today.
It truly does. I know a friend of mine, Joyce, and we have talked many, many times about the dysfunctions of families, and the inner child, and the inner wounds that the inner child take on, and that so forth. I mean, none of us or God bless the people that did have Ward and June Cleaver as their parents, but most of us didn't. And I always say our parents did the best they could. They only knew what they knew, right? And they did the best they could, and their parents did the best they could, and we as parents have done the best we can. So as you are growing up and going to high school and then going to college, how did you meet your husband?
Well, it is an adorable story. I was working full-time in downtown Tampa at a marketing agency, of all places. And he literally walked in the door to fill out paperwork, and for my boss. So I was going to be, I met up with him. So he was supposed to meet me. He stood me up. I told him I would come in early so he could get there early and then head off to work. He stood me up, and then he stood me up like the next day and the next day and the next day. And he finally finally was able to like make it in on time to fill out this paperwork for my company, who was paying him, by the way. And at that point, he just started showing up to my office. My boss got kind of nosy, and it was pretty much he needed to ask me out on a date, or he needed to leave the office. So we went out on a date.
That's cute. That is really cute. And so that was the beginning.
That was the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so then how did life go on for you then? You dated, you obviously got married.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I wasn't raised in church. So when I met my husband and I learned that his family was always at church, like at church, the doors are open, they are a family at church. I was so excited. I felt like that was an entity that I didn't have in my life. And I wanted that firm foundation of like faith and family and rituals. And growing up, I didn't have any of that. And so I was actually looking for that. I was thrilled that that was part of the package. And so we got married, and I actually attended medical school. So I was at medical school off and on, and he was up here in Tampa. And so we did that for a number of years. And then lo and behold, in my third year of medical school, I am now pregnant. So I took a year off and was thinking about going back. And then I got pregnant again. So my children are super close in age, and we just have, the oldest is a girl and the youngest is a son, except now they are in their 20s and both married. So they're not little people anymore.
How wonderful that is. So did you ever go back to finish your degree in medical school now?
No, I didn't. I became a stay-at-home mom, and then I transitioned quickly into a homeschool mom, and I actually homeschooled from kindergarten all the way to college.
So when did you yourself become closer to the Lord and know Jesus as your Savior? When did that happen for you?
Well, ironically, the summer after I had a period of abuse, I was taken to a summer camp, like a Christian summer camp, Valerie, and it was just glorious. It was like a whole week. Like you get treated like kings and queens, even though you're little people. And it was everything I could ever ask for. It was like, it wasn't paddleboarding, but it was like kayaking and little motorcycles you could learn to ride, and woodworking. And it was just, that whole essence of like a Christian summer camp. And I had never been anything near that. And so literally that's when I dedicated my life to Christ. But obviously, the next couple years, probably good decade, was pretty rough for me. So nobody was taking me to church. No one was talking to me about God. So obviously I fell away. But right before medical school, I really felt this urge that I needed to tap back into what was going to be my foundation. And I wanted to be a doctor who could affirm how amazing God made our bodies. And so when I went to medical school, even though I was far away, I started attending church down there again.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. So then that's like from a child and then all the way, and then you reaffirmed, and then you got back into it. And so then you had the kids, yay. Then you became a stay-home mom. And I applaud you for homeschooling too. Lots of patience for you, girl. Big yays for you. So then at that point, did you guys as a family, did you go to church and do that whole thing? And how did that work out for you? Did the kids, were they raised up in the church like how maybe you and I were not at that age,
Absolutely. We did follow the traditional patterns. We were there on Wednesday night, and we would be there Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, classes, Bible studies, activities. The churches that we went to always had lots of activities for children. So we were doing all the fun things like cheer team or baseball or softball or the little flag footballs or something like that. And, church just becomes your home, and church becomes your community. And so you go through a season when, you have toddlers, you're hanging out with all the other young couples that have toddlers, and that kind of continues on through all the ages and stages. We ended up taking a few breaks from those. And we we left our church and actually left our home. We bought an RV, and through middle school, we traveled much of the United States. We actually, all the states except Hawaii and Alaska, but the kids were always in tow. So my first Instagram handle was "Have Books, Will Travel." And because that's, yeah, we lived in a season where we traveled and explored the United States and abroad.
That's almost the best education your children can get, you know? I love that you did that. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country. If you have not seen all four corners of our country, please go. It is stunning and lovely. And, you know, we all live a little different. So if you're from a city, to actually get way rural and really understand how other people live, I think that's important.
Isn't it amazing though? Because as you're out there, you're like, God's beautiful handiwork is everywhere. You look at the mountains, you look at the sky, everything. And it's just, I just love it. It is beautiful. I've not had the opportunity to see all of it, but I can say what I have seen is just amazing. I just am in awe of what a wonderful creator, you know, our God is. It was just so great. So your husband was able to go on the road too, so he could work from home, kind of basically like on the road.
Yeah, we had businesses, and every time we wanted to make a family change, we would just shift the dynamics of how the business ran. So for that period of time, we had an office, and we had a number of employees. So we let all the employees go, and we just created a business that he and I could run out of the RV. And so a lot of it was him traveling to some of the larger cities. So, you know, I would drop him off at Phoenix Airport, and he would fly to Chicago, and he would do his job. And then I would pick him up somewhere down the road at the next little airport. So it was a lot of fun.
That sounds like it would be. What were the ages of your children when you were doing that?
We first started, they were like 7 and 9. So they were that perfect younger, you know, elementary. They were reading well. And so we explored all of the national parks and a lot of the museums. And there are some amazing museums as you head west. And I always tried to tag history to like wherever we were traveling. So we would pick a geographical route, and then we would do whatever history, culture, music, food. The food was the best along the way. And that's what we did for homeschooling.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So here we are. We've got the what appears to be the white picket fence family. Kids, mom, dad, life is good. So when did it not turn so good?
You know, Valerie, that's such an interesting question. We were moving closer and closer to that white picket fence family. We were pushing and really starting to live outside the box. So one of the projects that we took on was we traveled around the world, and we created a Christian television show for Angel Network. And then, of course, if you write a book or create a show, you know, especially in the Christian broadcasting world or the publication world, you know, now you have to go meet all these people and kind of like shop your book or shop your song or shop your, you know, TV show. So we started doing that, and then we became speakers at homeschool conventions, believe it or not. So we would have a booth, and then we would speak, and, you know, we talked about, you know, how to travel in an RV, how to make a little TV show, you know, like really pushing, you know, your box of what are you doing as a family, and living more intentional and a little bit more crazy, actually, you know, like pushing the envelope. And so we were just coming off the road, and there was something off. And, you know, what was found out later is that while we were on the road is when the betrayal was happening.
Just okay. So no red flags, nothing that really caught your eye.
Um,
To
you know, that's interesting, Valerie, because when I sit with women and we start unpacking the story and what it all looked like, yeah, there's always red flags.
yeah,
I mean, 99.9% of women would be like, yeah, this kind of caught me off, but I didn't know what to do about it. And that's the hardest piece in the marriage, is that when things start becoming off, you don't know what to do about it. Or if you're having conversations, I like to say, you just keep getting on your hamster wheel and you just keep saying the same thing over and again, and they're responding in the same manner, and you're never on the same hamster wheel, and so sometimes, unfortunately, it takes something drastic like a betrayal that really like tells you to back everything up. And now you really start examining, what is the foundation of my marital relationship?
I bet. So there you go. That happened. So there was the turning point there. So it's actually when you got him from being off the road, that's when it was discovered. Now, how long had it been going on?
It was a short season. And I'm very grateful, although it sounds odd. I'm very grateful that it wasn't like a neighbor or a woman down the road or somebody, we worked with. Every woman is different, but I think that would have been harder for me personally, to deal with, is knowing the proximity of that. So I never had to deal with any of that. But it's a season. It's a very, very long season of grieving and healing and looking at what was really real in your relationship and what wasn't going so well. And, I like to say, let's dig it all up. Let's drag it in the light, and if something needs to be repaired or forgiven, then we're just going to drip the blood of Jesus all over it. And we're going to do whatever we need to do, and as far as a marriage goes, that's challenging for women, because you don't know when are you supposed to like push and when are you supposed to pull, and you know what I mean? Like, do I start these hard conversations? And what happens if my husband doesn't engage back in these hard conversations? So there's just so many layers of work that needs to be done to get to the other side of betrayal recovery.
I believe that. I believe that full-heartedly. So when things like that are happening, I mean, it is almost as if your entire world is shattering and falling down around you. And here you are being, a mom, also trying to maybe shield the kids if this happened when they were younger, and still try to function and still try to figure out how to deal with it, as well as not wanting to fall apart and cry and just melt into a puddle of mush, or do just the opposite and rip someone's eyes out. So, wow. How did you handle it? How did you go toe to toe with this?
I probably did not handle it well. There was some miscommunication between my husband and I. And so there was a belief or a premise that was presented to us that if he told, it's called discovery, if he told and gave full discovery, like like you're in a lawsuit or something, he's got to show me all the evidence, then my role is to forgive him. But sometimes there's a belief that that's all the repair that's going to be necessary, and we're just going to hop back into life and we're just going to move forward and act like that was like no big deal. Unfortunately, betrayal is a huge trauma, and you can't just return to normal. It is a full season, of grieving. And then it's looking at every aspect of your marriage. And it is difficult to get up every day. And some days, I tell women, if you get a shower today, you need to applaud yourself. And so I like to have my women actually keep like gratitude journals, because there were some days, Valerie, where the only thing I could write in my gratitude journal was, my coffee was hot today. That was it. I could not find joy or happiness or laughter in anything else other than just the basics. I took a shower, my coffee was hot.
Gosh, I can just imagine. And then not just the betrayal, yes, but the betrayal goes hand in hand with the trust that is completely shattered at that point. And it is so hard. I in a conference one time, I heard it said that, I'm going to say it wrong, but trust can be shattered in an instant, but earned back in drops.
Yeah.
And I was, how do you do that? How do you navigate that, Kristi?
Well, the first thing that women need to know is, as they're doing their own grieving and they actually are coming forward and communicating well, authentically, we like to say, with their husbands and telling them what's really going on inside. And sometimes that's the first time they've ever really said, this is how I really feel about all of this. It's the man's job to actually stand there and take it. It is their duty to do the hard repair work on behalf of their wives, so their wives will heal. And so some of that is through difficult, conversations. But honestly, you can work with a repentant man. You cannot work with a man who doesn't think he has done anything wrong.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
If it's not a big deal, I'm just going to do this again. I don't see why you're so upset. All men do this. I mean, if this is some of the vocabulary that you're hearing, then that's a different scenario for women on what they're going to need to do to take steps, because at that point, they're going to need to really protect their own heart. And at that point, we're not even attempting to build trust, because there's nothing to build trust to, because they've already said, I'm only going to walk forward with you if you understand I'm going to do this again. And as a wife, if you're not willing to make that agreement, then we have to heal. We have to work on healing some other things.
Oh my goodness, that is horrible. I can't even imagine that, because I wonder sometimes how in the world people can, after infidelity occurs, to me, that is just speaking, that it is almost impossible to repair. But I know that with God, all things are possible.
Yeah.
And so how was God, how was he able, how did you use God, and how did you use your relationship with Jesus to mend all of this? What did that look like to you?
Well, Valerie, I think that's the most exciting and most beautiful part of it, is that the story is there was a train wreck in my marriage, but God showed up and helped me get through it. But God showed up and helped my husband see what he needed to see to be able to restore our marriage. It is but God. Everything about this journey is but God. But God showed up Monday. I was able to get out of bed. He comforted me. He protected me. So there's stories of women, that apparently it appears they're going to be in financial ruin, because the men have left or the men are not supporting. But God shows up with finances. But God shows up with a house. But God shows up with a car. But God shows up with a job. But God shows up with childcare. The whole journey is but God. And that's the most exciting part of it, is to watch women having to lean in and really, really, really beg God to show up and give them the answers they need. Because the reflex reaction is, I'm just going to get a divorce. And that's not always what God wants to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's my story, is I went through recovery, and then I separated from my husband, and God gave me permission to, and I left for a year, and almost to the year, to the date, God said, today's the day you go home. And I was obedient to his voice, because he's the only one that knew what was going on. And when I came home, my husband turned his heart to me, and I became his beloved bride again.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I'm so glad that worked out, because I was going to ask you how how the turn of events was for that. And your husband, I guess the Lord obviously did a work on him as well. And by you being gone too, he got a chance to appreciate you more and see what life was like without you.
I'm not going to say that, but whatever needed to happen did happen. And he was responsive. He was responsive to God. I'm not going to take any credit for that whatsoever. But at that point, we were then circling back around, Valerie, at that point, we were ready to start working on trust.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Because until we had done the others, there wasn't any foundation to build on. So, and now he encourages me, and when I lead betrayal groups, and he doesn't mind me coming on a podcast and sharing a little bit about our story, and he's marvelous, and we have been able to put together a really lovely, joyful, loving relationship.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That shows that's pureness of forgiveness. And God was really worked through both of you in that. How was it for the kids?
I wish I could say that it was good for them, but it was not. When I left, neither one of the children wanted to speak to me because they did not come with me. They were old enough to, we asked them the question. They were old enough to decide, did they want to come with mom or did they want to stay home with dad? And since I was leaving, I did leave alone by myself. And it's been rocky. It has been rocky. It's 10 years. There are scars. The children do get scars. And it's unfortunate. And that's one of the reasons that I do what I do, Valerie, because if we can shore up this generations of marriage, and if we can train our little girls to be on the lookout and really, really understand what a healthy relationship looks like, then maybe we can slow some of these numbers down and we can really turn the tide on what marriage looks like, because God loves marriage, but evil hates marriage.
That's right. Very true. Very true. And I love that you're doing that with your different groups and your workshops that you do. Because our generations, the younger ones coming up, women and men, they need to see and understand what a healthy relationship, what it looks like, because most of us came from dysfunctional families. We have no idea what a healthy relationship looks like. We are modeled after maybe our mother or our father, or how they handled relationships or their spouse and vice versa. And we don't know. We have no idea what it looks like to be in a healthy relationship or even be a healthy person in a relationship. We have no idea. We don't know what it looks like because of the dysfunction so far. So it's got to stop somewhere. That boundary line, I think you were talking about at some point in your information there. Where's the boundary line in life? Where is that balance and boundary in the line in life? So true. And I'm glad that you did that with the kids. I think if you could, for anyone watching that's maybe going through this right now, do you have a suggestion or a comment or encouragement for them with their kids, how to handle it with their children?
Well, I think they're going to need their own care. So I think they're going to need their own outlet. So I would definitely look into some counseling for the kids. They need a safe space where they can say what they need to say. And what they're going to say is, I hate my mother. I hate my father. I can't believe these two. They're being so selfish. Obviously that's going to be age appropriate as to what they're going to be trying to communicate. I mean, they've watched us. They've watched you, and they know what's going on. So you do have to be age appropriate, but you have to let them know what's going on, because they're reading you and they know there's tension in the house. They know you're arguing. They know dad's sleeping on the couch or mom's in the guest room or whatever the dynamics are. They're not stupid. They're not missing any of this. And so you really need to get ahead of it, because if you think that evil plays games in your mind, imagine what evil does to your children's minds.
Mm-hmm. I believe that. Now, do you think it's something that, I guess, maybe age appropriate? Do you tell the kids everything, or do you give them the, oh, no, it's fine, we're working some things out, and you brush over it? Because kids are smart, and kids will be turning to someone else to get answers, their friends' parents, and so forth. How do you feel about that?
I think you really have to do a case by case basis on that, Valerie. The dynamics of what's going on in the house and the background, it's going to be super important. Some women want their children to know. Some women do not want their children to know. And so they are just going to say something super superficial, like mommy and daddy are fighting, and that's why you see what's going on between us, and we just have to work this out. I've just heard of, I've heard a lot of different things, levels of discovery. I think the older that they get, the more into middle school and the more high school, they are able to understand more. They see it, they read it. However, the most important part is that at no time are they responsible for your marital failures. And so we have to be really verbal with that, because that's what they'll pick up, is they'll pick up, probably not just from themselves, but also, from Satan, is that they caused this. And that's the message that we need to make sure that they never walk away with, is they caused this. And if only they had been better or more well behaved or cleaned their room or whatever it is. And that was never, ever, ever the case. This betrayal recovery is between the sins of the father and, the wife. True.
Very true. And thank you for saying that. Now, everything you've walked through, now you do workshops and conferences, which is amazing. And it's the Radiant Warrior from Crisis to Christ conferences. Tell our audience a little bit about that, and your booklet, which is the Radiant Warrior Journey Workbook. And just so much is going on. I love what you're doing. And I especially love when you shared that you bring your husband on stage too.
I do. It's been a couple of years in the process, but I have put together a 14-week class. It's a small group that I do. And I usually take somewhere between 8 and 10 women, and we just walk for 14 weeks. It is super fast paced. It's a lot of information. It's like, what I like to say, it's like drinking from a fire hose, but God is there the whole time. And even just in 14 weeks, God can make dramatic changes in these lives. And that's what we see happen. And it's a season that it warms my heart. And I just, if we can heal wives, we heal these baby girls, we heal the little boys, and we start breaking off these generational curses, and we really turn the tide. And that's why I do what I do. So I'm always looking for opportunities and avenues. Who do I need to talk to? Where do I need to be? I would love it if churches across America would offer this for women. It's really hard to find support for women. It's even harder to find support for men. So all you ladies need to start praying about that, because we can start the women stuff, but our men don't have any place to go and get the healing that they need as well. So that's why I do what I do, because it's the next generations. It's paying it forward, Valerie.
Exactly. And I love ending the generational curse. Of course, it all stops here and it all stops today. Boom. And I love that very much. So show us your workbook. I know you're very proud of that workbook.
I am. So it's about 200 pages, and I have used my own journey, and I have just pulled from a ton of resources as a collection of kind of what I think is the best information, like how quickly can I take you from I can't get out of bed to, what, I feel powerful and I am now able to make informed decisions about what's going on with my marriage. And that's the scope, is we have to stop hurting, and we have to get to the other side, so we really understand and feel that we are healing, and that we understand that we're in control of that healing. It's not a magic pill. No one's just going to show up one day and you're going to be healed. It is actively taking bold steps that you've never taken before to get to a different place, or you're just going to stay in the same place. That's
definitely. It's a process. It is definitely a process for sure. So at what point do you suggest, I know every situation is different, but women that are watching this now and that watch it on the replay, and they're in a situation and they don't know where to turn, They don't feel like they can talk to their husband. They don't feel like they're maybe too embarrassed to talk to a family member or a friend, and they're just sitting there and they don't know what to do. What's a suggestion you can make for them? What's a good avenue or direction you can point them in?
Valerie, that's so hard because as women, if we do disclose what's going on to some of our nearest and dearest friends, they may say you need to stay, or they may say you need to run, you need to go, you need to just file divorce papers right now. But how do you know that's the will of God? So step one is, and this is what was told to me, is you better lay prostrate on the ground and you better start praying to the God above and saying, Lord, I need a plan. I need a plan for my healing, so I understand what steps you need me to take in this place. And it's a faith walk, Valerie. It's day by day by day by day by day. And then you really are going to need a small group. I do not despise counseling. I've been through a lot of counseling. The trick for me was that the marriage counseling was, 1 week, the husband won, and then the next week I won as the wife. And so that was the goal. The goal was who could get the most digs in, like in the hour. And so I like to extract women and say, you know what, women, we're going to go over here and camp for a while until you stabilize, until you have time to be alone with God, until you're really starting to hear the voice of God, so you know what steps he wants you to take. And so I'm a small group girl, Valerie. I think women need to be in fellowship and sisterhood, and we need to laugh together and cry together and hug each other and hold hands. And I think we need to do all that stuff. And the hardest night of a small group is the first night, because you walk in and you think, I'm stupid. I can't believe I have to come here. No one's going to understand me. No one's ever had this happen the way I've had mine happen. And I just feel foolish that I have to walk in the room.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it, they're saying what?
I can't believe it's been 14 weeks. I don't want to leave. And then what I usually do with my women is we do follow-up events. So those events are starting to grow, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And just last month, everyone was invited for a vision board workshop that I put together for them.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I love that you're doing this, because you are pouring into them through your struggles, through your journey that you walked through, and you're pouring into them. Now, how can people find you, find out about other workshops that you're putting together? I've got some of your information, which I'm going to post on our interview at the end, your website and your email and your phone number, so they can get in touch with you. But do you have anything cooking on the back burner right now?
I do. I'm just about to start some spring fall groups. I'm going to do one in person here in Tampa, Florida, and the other one is going to be online Zooms. So if anybody needs to hop into some recovery week work, I do have that. I always do one-on-one coaching. I do that year round. And then this fall, I am going to be putting on a conference in Tampa, Florida. And a lot of those details are still in the works. So as we learn more, we will share more. But that's what I've got going on.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And how's hubby these days?
He is wonderful. As all of us, he's gotten a little gray, and I know I've gotten gray too. So we're really in a good place. And the key is that now we have the tools to be able to communicate when we're not. So, and that's the difference.
That is so important. Very important. So if we're going to close this out, I want a nugget. Give the ladies that are watching the nugget, something that they can carry with them. It's, they've taken in a lot of information. We don't know where they are in their journey right now with what they're walking through, but a nugget from you that they can carry with them that's going to take root and encourage them. What would that be?
I really think it's but God. I think that unfortunately evil has had his way and his day, and he has us all believing that we're the only ones struggling. And we know that. We know social media is just, it's the pictures of the prettiest, but we all have a story of harm and of trauma, and the only way to get to the other side is through the but God, and really having an encounter with God so that he can heal your heart, because that's what healing really is. Not only for trauma, not only just betrayal trauma, but all traumas, anything that has wounded your soul, you need to know that the Father and the Son are waiting for you so that they can heal that part of you. They want you to be healed and whole and happy and joyful. And so it's out there for you. It really is. But God.
But God. And I love it because God shows up at the 11th hour and it's just on time, never late and never early, always on time, always on time. Kristi, I just adore you. You are amazing.
Oh.
You really are. Kristi and I had, we went through a life coaching recertification class together and spent some time together, and you're amazing. And I love that you are doing this, because it is almost like what people don't talk about, like you said, like if they just don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. They want to think that, they don't want anyone to know that their life and their world isn't perfect or whatever, or that, just there's a shame. Sadly, there's a shame that comes along with it. Even if they were the innocent party, there's shame. And that's so hard, because the enemy does have a heyday when there's shame involved. And I'm so glad that you're doing this, so that way there's hope. Like you said, you're the warrior of hope, and you are. And thank you for doing this, putting this on your Radiant Warriors, your workshops, your book. Everything that you're doing is giving them a step forward, a step up, a step in confidence, a step in encouragement, a step to realize that, hey, it's not just me, other people too. And I thank you so much for that. I love it.
You're welcome, Valerie.
I love you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And I will have Kristi's information on the video towards the end, and you catch the replay on Hope Defined Me on Facebook, or you can catch it on the YouTube channel, Hope Defined Me. But right now, I just am applauding you, Kristi, for all that you've done and everything you've walked through to bring it to fruition today. But God. Amen. Thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.